This is a podcast from the Business Times.
Welcome to Wealth with BT, hosted by Genevieve Cua. In this episode, find out what it takes to set up a family office. This episode is brought to you by Pictet Wealth Management.
What comes to mind when you hear or read about family offices? The obvious thing is wealth. Over the past few years, there has been a surge in the number of family offices being set up in Singapore. For these business families, the wealth is large enough for them to consider strategies for multi-generational legacy, for professional management of their various assets, and for philanthropy. How do you know when you need a family office? What does it take to set up one? Welcome to Wealth with BT. I'm your host, Genevieve Cua, Wealth Editor of the Business Times. I've met and written about ultra-wealthy families with family offices. One example is the JL Family Office, which manages wealth for the family of John Lim, who founded ARA Asset Management. John Lim made his fortune investing in real estate in Asia Pacific. The family office manages assets of $350 million and is also a base for the family foundation. More recently, I also spoke to Alice Hung, who set up a family office here called the Pioneer Group. The family office is a base for her operating businesses and philanthropy. In fact, Singapore is a magnet for the wealthy in Asia and globally. These individuals either already have a substantial business presence in the region or wish to deepen and broaden their investments. To date, there are 1,400 single-family offices here, compared to 400 at the end of 2020. My guest in the studio today is Angie Han. She's head of wealth planning for Pictet Wealth Management. Angie has a law degree and has extensive experience helping multi-generational families structure and protect their wealth. How are you, Angie? Welcome to the studio.
Hi, Jen. It's great to be here.
I'm hoping you can help to shed light on family offices and why their growing presence in Singapore seems unstoppable. No two families are alike, of course, but what do you see as the main reasons or drivers for families to consider a family office?
One of the main drivers is to centralize the management of the family's increasingly complex wealth as it spreads across different asset classes and locations. Traditionally, families tend to set up several vehicles, usually in offshore jurisdictions, to hold their assets. But with the introduction of global initiatives to counter aggressive tax planning strategies using such offshore tax havens, these families realize that such structures may not be sustainable anymore, and so they look to move their structures onshore. At the same time, the family office regimes in regional financial centers of Singapore and Hong Kong offer them an attractive option to base their family offices, as they are able to achieve certainty of tax treatment in relation to these assets through the relevant tax exemptions. On top of that, in an era of heightened global uncertainties, mobility and optionality become more important, and the family office regimes in Singapore and Hong Kong give foreign families an opportunity to send their next-gen family members to run and work in these family offices, as well as to diversify their investment activities and geographical exposure. Of course, not forgetting the wealth owners' desire for intergenerational continuity, they see family offices as a tool to plan and implement strategies for wealth transfer across generations. For example, an Asian real estate development group recently set up a family office in Singapore. Their main motivation was to manage their increasing assets spread across the full real estate value chain and tech startups, and also look to diversify their investments further through a professionally run family office. Their goal was to streamline governance, retain more control and oversight over the family's wealth, and also ensure a cohesive wealth accumulation and preservation strategy that supports both current and future generations.
So it looks like there's a certainty in tax treatment is one, and comprehensive management of assets. How do you go about helping families to crystallize what they want from a family office? There can be many objectives and sometimes points of conflict.
That's a great question, Jen. Many a times, we see one of the younger family members being tasked to explore the setup of a family office, and the first thing they usually ask is which jurisdiction would be the best to set it up, and then proceeds to ask us for a comparison of the family office regimes, investment or employment requirements, and also the scope of the applicable tax exemptions across the different jurisdictions. Their thought process is as such because more often than not, their starting point is to consolidate the management of the different family assets, so they see their family office first as their investment office. However, family office setups can often serve as a catalyst for broader conversations about family governance. We try to help families see that family offices are not just about organizing financial assets. The notion of a family office prompts a family to think collectively about their future, their legacy, and how they will manage their internal and external relationships. These conversations are crucial in building a robust family governance framework that supports the family's unity and the effective management of their wealth. When the family is able to define and articulate their shared vision and values, the family office can then operate in a manner that aligns with its long-term objectives. If these are questions that the families have not applied their minds to, then there is no better time to have these discussions than now when they're thinking about setting up a family office. Family governance, briefly, refers to the systems, rules, and processes that a family agrees upon to manage their relationships and make decisions. These will have implications on key issues like investment strategies, philanthropic endeavors, and the distribution of wealth, including the formation of family councils or boards and committees that could oversee the different aspects of the family office's operations. Effective communication is also vital in managing the relationship between a family office and the rest of the family members. Succession planning is also an important consideration, since one of the functions of a family office is to ensure wealth preservation across generations. Discussions will need to cover the preparation of future generations for leadership roles, the transfer of knowledge, and the legal aspects of inheritance and wealth transfer. Sometimes we as advisors are roped in to help facilitate these conversations, provide guidance, and maintain focus on the issues that are core to the family members, and also help them find a balanced approach that caters to both individual and collective goals and align their objectives. For instance, we have a case where a next-gen family member approached us with the idea of setting up a family office. Up until now, the patriarch has been actively managing the family business, as well as the family's financial investments, both areas in which the next gen have no interest in. They prefer to do their own VC investments in new economy startups, which is very different from the traditional ventures that the family has pursued. It was clear in our conversations with the family that there was a big gap between what the two generations want. Although the patriarch has no expectation for the next gen to take over the family business, he feels that the next gen are taking things for granted and that they should work hard to make sure that they know firsthand how to manage financial wealth. The successors, on the other hand, are of the view that their father is old-fashioned and unwilling to relinquish control, whereas they're completely into the delegation model because they're of the view that if the professionals can do it better, why not leave it to them? And they themselves can instead focus their energies on their passions. Trusted advisors play an important mediator role in these family discussions so that conflicts can be managed, and we try to help the family members understand one another's perspective so that we can bridge this generational gap and establish a unified vision and mandate for the family office.
That's interesting. You've brought up quite a few points. It sounds as if discussions around objectives and governance can be far more challenging in a way than investment structures. How challenging is it for Asian families to actually have an open discussion on these issues? And does it take a long time? It takes a long time to work out these points of conflict, yeah.
Yes, for sure, it can be challenging to have such discussions, especially if, the family has a certain pattern of the way they communicate. So I think a lot of times what we see in traditional family members is that most of the younger generation members are respectful of the elders and are not so open about airing their views when they actually enter into such discussions.
We've just been chatting with Angie Han from Pictet Wealth Management. A family office is often driven by the desire for comprehensive management of wealth, not just financial assets, but also physical, like real estate. And families may also want to build a legacy for future generations. Does a family office replace a trust? More on this after the break.
And now, back to Wealth with BT, brought to you by Pictet Wealth Management.
Welcome back to Wealth with BT. Angie, where a family office is being contemplated, how do trusts fit in? What's the difference between them?
Thanks for the question, Jen. There's a lot of misconception about these two different tools. Family offices and trusts serve complementary but different roles in managing and enabling the smooth wealth transfer across generations for families, and these tools are actually not mutually exclusive. Just to explain briefly, a trust is primarily used for estate planning and asset protection, providing a legal framework for a settlor to transfer his or her assets to a trustee to manage for a group of beneficiaries and be able to achieve a separation of legal ownership of the assets, which lies with the trustee, from the underlying beneficial ownership. The trust deed sets out the settlor's intentions as to the duration of the trust, the powers and the duties to be given to the trustee, the time and manner of the distribution of the trust income and principal, and the rights of the beneficiaries. Other than being able to establish a succession or distribution plan in accordance with the settlor's wishes, with proper structuring, a trust can also protect the assets against claims from creditors and third parties. A family office, on the other hand, is more like a private office managing the affairs for large wealth owners with a wide range of services, including investment management, supporting the education and development of next-gen family members, facilitating family governance framework, coordinating communication and concierge services within the family members, and also administer wealth structures and philanthropic initiatives for the family. Very often, a family office will manage a family trust as part of its services, integrating the two into a cohesive strategy. To give you an example, one family office whom we have worked with for a very long time has a professional investment team that manages the investments for the family. The family office itself is appointed by the trustee to manage the trust assets. Key board members of the family office oversee the different wealth structures, including sitting on the boards of private trust companies or private foundations, or even forming the Protectors Committee for Trusts, where trustees are external professional trust companies.
So, in speaking to families, what are some characteristics that signal to you that a single family office may be appropriate for them? There are other vehicles like multifamily office, for example. So what are some typical deciding factors for these options?
The decision usually comes down to the size and complexity of the family wealth, specific needs of the family, such as the desire for personalized services, costs and privacy considerations, and the family's long-term objectives. An embedded family office is usually a first-generation operational model that is formed organically when a team within the family business, typically the CFO or the finance team, starts to manage the family principal's private affairs. As it develops over time, it may eventually become formalized as a separate office when the principal realizes that there should be a segregation between family and business interests. A dedicated single-family office is usually warranted when the family has diverse and complex assets, multiple stakeholders, the financial means to support the operational costs, desires a high level of customization and structured governance, and also values control and privacy. Conversely, a multi-family office might be chosen for cost-sharing benefits, increased operational efficiencies, and access to institutional-grade resources without the need for full-time commitment. This model provides smaller families with the sophistication and scale of larger organizations while retaining customized services. In fact, as we see a strong growth of family offices in recent years, we also see a consolidation trend where more onerous regulatory and compliance obligations and increasing costs have driven single-family offices to join existing multi-family offices. Another type of multi-family offices we have seen is a result of a single-family office being so successful at managing the principal family's wealth that they extend their services to other families who trust them and are convinced by their track record.
Actually, the Business Times also ran an article earlier this year about this possible consolidation trend among single-family offices because of high operating costs and increased scrutiny by the MAS. Is there a typical asset size threshold? You may say, okay, if you're around this size, maybe it might be appropriate to consider a single-family office.
I think driven by the requirements of the family office regimes, we typically see families starting to look at setting up one when they are looking to manage, 50 million worth of assets. Practically speaking, it would make more sense for a family with at least 100 million worth of assets to start considering setting up a full dedicated single-family office for themselves.
Right. So for those families that do take the plunge for a single-family office, what challenges might they face in terms of ensuring that the office can be sustained?
Well, some of the common challenges we hear from these families include hiring and retaining the right talent to deliver the services that meet the family's expectations, ensuring professional management practices while keeping the family's values and vision at the forefront, and also maintaining operational efficiency. And sometimes the families may ask then, how do we actually overcome these challenges? In terms of recruitment and retention of talent, other than making sure that, salaries and benefits are competitive with the market, the family could try to offer clear career paths and professional growth opportunities, promote a work culture that aligns with both professional standards and the family's values. The family's values and vision can be reinforced with the family office team through regular meetings and retreats, and of course, employee engagement through regular feedback, recognition programs, and team-building activities that could boost loyalty and also job satisfaction. As for maintaining operational efficiency, it would be important to find the balance between insourcing and outsourcing, and also implementing the right technology tools to improve efficiency and accuracy in managing the family's investments and reporting. And in order for the family office to remain nimble, to adapt and update its strategies and policies to the changing environment and needs of the family, there should be regular reviews of the family office's performance, open lines of communication with the family members, and engaging with external advisors and consultants with an outside perspective is also key. I'm now reminded of this successful family office for a third-generation, privately owned global industrial group based in Asia. The family office was set up more than 2 decades ago and is completely run by external professionals all these years. This was a conscious decision made by the family to avoid personal agendas coming into play. Yet, the family office management team had frequent interactions with and also worked alongside the family principals and managers of the family business, such that when both the family business and the family office went through a leadership transition in the last 5 years, they managed to do so seamlessly, owing no doubt to the robust operational and governance structures, including well-defined roles and responsibilities for the different stakeholders that have been implemented. Setting up a family office may not be the end goal for all large wealth owners. It is more important to find the right tools that support the family in achieving its mission. For some large families, instead of having their own family office, it may make more sense to professionalize the management of their wealth through the engagement of external institutions in order to reduce the risk of tensions between family members. as a family office in itself could create an additional layer of complexity and a potential avenue for conflict.
I think that's a good point. It's sort of suggesting that the family office is a vehicle in itself, but it's actually a means to an end, not the end by itself. Thank you, Angie. Thank you for dropping in and sparing the time to speak with us.
Thank you, Jen, for having me here.
The decision to set up a family office really isn't a simple one. Families' needs can be very complex if they have many businesses and investments in many jurisdictions. What's clear is that the family office isn't just a nice to have for prestige, especially if the family wants to tap Singapore's tax incentives. The commitment can be costly. But the many functions of a family office can go a long way to enhance and preserve family wealth. Until the next episode, thank you for listening.
This episode of Wealth with BT was brought to you by Pictet Wealth Management. That was a podcast from the Business Times. Send your feedback to podcast@sph.com.sg. Find us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast or via the Google Voice Assistant Amazon-enabled devices. For more podcasts by The Straits Times, The Business Times, and Money FM 89.3, you can also download the audio by SPH app. That's AWEDIO. This podcast is meant to provide general information only. SPH Media accepts no liability for loss arising from any reliance on the podcast or use of third parties' products and services. Please consult professional advisors for independent advice.